Quantum healing, the future of medicine.
Well, we're back again into having a talk on real techniques that the future is going to be holding, sort of quantum techniques. These are much higher energy techniques and performed a little differently. So up until this point, we have had our energy workers, and they have used energetic techniques, meaning just using energy. But they've been at a lower level to where we're actually headed to in a golden age. So more and more we're going to see energy workers will become more adept at using higher frequency techniques and how that works. And any energy worker can learn these techniques and add them to their repertoire of what they know in energy work. So it's a work in progress. Any energy workers that we've had on the planet up until this point have largely been using a similar technique, using intuition. This intuitive use of energy is really, really good, but not the highest form of energy that we can use, because what we want to do with the golden age as we progress and we go into higher frequencies is go above mind. So anytime we're using mind, we will find that we're using ego. Ego and mind are one. They're sort of intertwined together. So you will hear some people say, well, I'm not using ego. Well, if you're using intuition, you're using ego, because intuition is just a higher form of the mind. It is higher mind, or at least trying to tap into higher mind. And again, the issue I have with intuition, although I myself am very intuitive, and of course I use that daily, is that it doesn't take us where we need to go as far as healing in the future. In the future, we need to start to bring in healing techniques that use no mind at all. So to really talk about that, then we have to go into on a much broader scale of what quantum is. I'm hoping that everyone followed to get to this episode. I was hoping that everyone would have followed from episode 1 till this point, because the way I had designed it was to really give you building blocks on what is quantum actually. As far from the perspective of healing, one has to go into a series of understanding of quantum, of light, of dark, and so forth, which is what we explained. But the way I set it up in the different episodes is that one episode built upon another to bring us to this point of understanding how to actually use it as a healing technique. There are many, many avenues from quantum, as you can imagine. This is universal energy. This is God energy. This is the energy that creates all. So obviously it's infinite, and there's many, many routes that one can take with it. But in the context of these episodes, we are talking about using the quantum in order to heal instead of the system that we have right now, which is really based on symptomatic treating and not on root cause treating. There's a vast difference in approach on that. And in the case of post-traumatic stress disorder, it's absolutely essential. You cannot tackle it just from symptoms. The symptoms are very severe ultimately if it remains untreated, and usually ends up in a very unbalanced physical body, which then creates devastating diseases of the body. So if we just start off with how quantum operates in a physical body is quite fascinating. And we have already, in a sense, been using these with acupuncture, use the meridian lines. So what you need to understand is that we have a physical body, and it has systems, and it has also electricity running it. Those are the systems that will run, the heart and all our vital organs, brain, so forth. The autonomic system seems like it's operating on its own. What it is actually using is quantum energy, which plugs into the physical body at the neurological system. So outside of the physical body and outside of the neurological, electricity is the main source of activity, which is the main source of electricity, which is quantum. So quantum has its own system of energy, and it is arterial, and we call them the meridian system, the meridian lines in the body. These can be researched. This is no secret. We have known about these. They're invisible, obviously, to the naked eye, but people have been working with meridians for eons of time. And it just depending on which cycle the Earth was going through, whether it was a dark cycle or a light cycle. When it goes into the dark cycles, these kinds of memories or understandings or knowledge of God, of Creator, gets suppressed because the dark side really doesn't want people to know about the light knowledge during these periods of time. And so it sort of gets squashed and obliterated, and over thousands of years gets lost until we have a system that we have today, which is a very almost a non-existent from the quantum point of view, from a spiritual aspect, and it focuses purely on the physical. And the system is created not on really, at the end of the day, not on really helping or healing people, but how much money it makes. So it's based on greed and control. And we can see this in the system of mainly, prescription drugs, medications, using the knowledge, limited or vast, of whoever or whatever physicians are treating you. And we are relying basically on a human being to heal us. And a lot of these diseases that we develop in the physical body are very, very complicated. So in order to even figure your way around these huge complications, you need super smart, intelligent physicians or therapists, the mental therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, etc. However, it's always still treating it from the physical aspect of the human body and completely ignoring the creative energy, which is the root, and which without we would not even have a human body. So to me, it's quite incredulous that we can study medicine or anything to do with the mind at all without considering where does this energy come from. So we are now going to be dealing with quantum because that's where we're going. The higher the frequency, the more spiritual people become automatically as we ascend into the higher frequencies. These techniques will become known and will become practiced. And basically, that's what we're talking about, is overcoming just the physical. And of course, using common sense that there is a place for each. Again, it's body, mind, spirit. If you were in a car accident and your body is in great jeopardy of passing due to the injuries, you don't go to the spiritual person first. You will definitely go to the physician first. So just looking at it in the proper context, when we're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, it works completely differently because that is purely injury of the quantum bodies. So again, just to go over again, we have 5 bodies. We have a physical body, an astral body, an emotional body, a mental body, and the soul body. So present day medicine is focused on the physical body. That's what we deal with. It's either the mind, physical, which goes into some emotions, so it sort of goes out of the bounds a little bit there. But if you're not introducing the main source of energy, which is the quantum, which is creative energy, then I'm not sure what kind of proper solutions you're coming to without bringing the complete paradigm into the equation. So for decades, I have been dwelling upon this puzzle, because all we are told is about the physical. And it takes you to experience post-traumatic stress disorder to understand that this is something far beyond just the physical body. It is far beyond just the mind. You begin, as you experience some of the symptoms of this disorder, and many disorders, is not just one disorder. The umbrella is post-traumatic stress disorder. But under that umbrella are many, many, many disorders that physicians are trying to, or therapists, mental therapists, are trying to treat separately and not making that connection to post-traumatic stress disorder at all. Many, many disorders they will treat you for, give you medications for, and then we get onto this cycle of medications and already a distorted mind. So not a good combination, and people don't do very well with it at all, which they know, but somehow we have never seemed to progress forward. When you yourself are experiencing these awful symptoms and nobody can help, and they reducing you to a disorder, which you could have a combination of disorders, it begins to be very frustrating for the person experiencing PTSD. It really is. And it took a lot of thinking. I was subjected to quite a lot of childhood trauma, one of them extremely painful, that really set me up quite early as a child, experiencing the symptoms of which I did not understand, of which I tried to talk to many people, of which I tried to go to the mental people, physicians. No one, absolutely no one could get a grip on this, could help me get out of this. And it was quite desperate when you are experiencing some of these awful symptoms and triggering on a daily basis. Although in my case, this was sort of a gift that I had to go through to understand the condition and find a solution for it. So it stands to reason in my case that this had to be experienced one-on-one. So again, electromagnetic energy is the energy that you're working with in the quantum. It is an energy that completely surrounds our body, and it can be manipulated and used, if done correctly, with a high level of ethics. This is a very interesting energy to work with, because if there's not a high degree of ethics or morals behind it, it just shuts down. It doesn't work at all. So you have to be, when you're working with it, you have to be very compatible with that energy in order for it to be successful. So again, you can look up the meridian lines which run through the body. There's some main meridian lines, and then there's a whole lot of arterial meridian lines that run in between. But what they carry into the body or into the metaphysical bodies is a whole other system of carrying energy. So when we get a trauma, this trauma is like a lightning strike on the body, because it hits, let's minus for a second something that is physically traumatic. And of course that can be, so there's, more damage than just the quantum. The quantum gets damaged too. It also damages. So when that trauma hits you, it hits you on a very, very deep emotional level. It impacts you very, very harshly. And if we don't release this energy, these are negative emotions that we experience. There's nothing happy about experiencing trauma. You go through an enormous amount of fear and anxieties, etc., which are known as negative emotions. Negative emotions need to be released immediately. Once you've worked with the quantum a bit, you don't have to have done it very long, you will quickly realize that if something negative happens to you, you can either hold it, which is a lot of our emotional response is out of fear or shock, is to hold that in and try to process it from within. But actually what really needs to be done, it needs to be completely released out immediately. That's the best way to even not get touched by post-traumatic stress disorder at all. I have, since I've learned a lot about it, been in traumatic experiences and been able to completely release the trauma immediately, release the emotion that involved that trauma and have come out very well from that with no mental or physical repercussions. But this is something that society or this group of people on the planet at this moment in time are not familiar with in general. So of course there are metaphysicians on the planet. They're usually not very welcomed. They're kind of scoffed at by mainstream medicine, let's say. Lots of egos in action over there, and would consider metaphysicians in the woo-woo category, not understanding it at all, that this is the essence of life. And without that essence, the physical body wouldn't even exist. So we cannot discount it and we cannot subtract it. It is part and parcel of our physical and mental body. So when we experience a dramatic trauma, and it doesn't have to be dramatic, but usually those are the ones that we remember and impact us the most. Mostly what we do is hold that energy. We hold it in there. It's so shocking to us, and especially repeated traumas, childhood traumas, emotional traumas, especially childhood, affects so many people. By the time they're, leaving the household, let's say, an awful lot of people already have PTSD and all the disorders. It depends on you as a person, as a unique individual, which disorders you develop from PTSD. But the whole point is that you're holding. And the more trauma you get, as in domestic abuse, childhood abuse, military experiences, where there's repeated trauma day after day after day, many things are taking place in the body in order to survive that. You have to survive it somehow. Many do not. So the ones that do survive can easily talk about how they are trying to survive the impact of these repeated traumas that are not getting released. And they start to kind of stack up in the body. They sort of start to pancake in there. And the body tries to remove these traumas or the damage from trauma, these negative emotions from vital organs that could perhaps kill you. And it will put them into more innocuous areas of the body. So when people come in with PTSD, they usually have a lot of physical problems and pain, also diseases, but we're just talking about the pain, where the body will take these negative emotions and put them in safer areas, let's say. So instead of, let's say, you impacted in the stomach area or in the lung area, those negative emotions stay in there, and they're like very heavy anchors that sit blocking this whole quantum arterial system that we have running through our body. It'll take those and it'll put them into shoulders or knees, or that's where people have problems. It'll remove it away from vital organs that we absolutely do need. Unfortunately, you'll see if post-traumatic stress disorder is not treated, which it's not getting treated, it'll quickly, over time and over decades, develop into more serious diseases, which metaphysicians will say it's dis-ease, meaning imbalance. It imbalances the body. Now you've got too much negative emotions all pancaked inside there, all very heavy feeling. Is a very heavy feeling to negative emotions when you store them